Oh, it was a beautiful night this past Monday night, January 19th, 2026. The cool had kind of set in Miami and those beautiful stadium there at the Hard Rock Stadium as the Miami Dolphins hadn't won enough games to even have a playoff game this year. And the Miami Hurricanes thought they'd made everything. They were going to make a big game. They were going to be able to be national championships on their home field. But people from the north came flying in. Somehow, amazingly, 60 to 70% of the fans were wearing cream and crimson. And well, let's finish this story in just a second because we want to talk about this story here on the High Five and then get into some sales strategies. But today it's a two-person show, and on the right-hand side of your screen, getting ready to go enjoy a little bitty beach life because that's where he has and what he can do in this stage of life, Mr. Brian Linke. Brian Linke, it is currently 8 degrees and a -3 wind chill here in Indianapolis, Indiana. How about you in the greater Tampa area? How's weather there? It looks about similar?
I bet. I think the last time I looked, it was like 74 degrees. The thing about this time of year, there's no humidity, none, like zero. And yeah, I'll be heading to the beach. I'm having dinner at this tiki hut thing down there. It's a whole big party, and this is my favorite time of year down here by far. My feet in the sand, sweatshirt on, bathing suit on. Let's go.
Yep. Well, it is the time to celebrate, and you have two sons who are graduates from the school from Bloomington. I have a son who is a freshman at the school in Bloomington, and this past Monday night there was one of the craziest adventures that I've ever seen in my sports life. A team that I thought probably would never make a national championship, much less a playoffs, or the other way around, make a playoffs, much less a national championship. In the last 2 years, Kurt Signetti and the boys came into town and took them to the national championship. And Brian, what were your expectations and what were your feelings? I think you got to watch that with your boys on Monday night as the Hoosiers took the national championship.
I did, and I was really happy for them because they lived through both of them some really tough times. Matter of fact, I bet you I went down there and went to 3 or 4 games with each of them, and the thing about the IU games, the tailgates were a bigger thing than the game. We tailgate before the game. We'd go in, stay till halftime, and we were back at the tailgate because the game was out of hand already. But no, I was happy for my boys. I was happy for the kids. I was happy for all of IU. I was happy for your son. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, it's an amazing story. Never thought ever that something like that would happen. And no, I'm happy for the Indiana Hoosiers. It was fun.
Well, and it just kind of shows how quick things can change. And it's so much in just life right now. You can turn around things very quickly in different stages of life. And you can come in and you can be a 3-win Indiana team, the losingest team in the history of NCAA. And you can turn it around. And in the first year of a new program, you can go to, 11 wins last year and go to the playoffs, lose to your nemesis, Notre Dame. And the following year, come back and go 16-0. And make huge changes. And I think it's just a picture of what can happen in life, that there's so much more to do it. Brian, as you saw that, we've all had the experience to have our team win the national championship. Mine a little more recent than yours for Michigan and Florida State. But when you looked at that, what does that make you think about Florida State next year or the year after? Does it give you any hope, or what are your thoughts? As a person who has a new coach, I'm giving a lot of new hope, but.
Nate, believe me, okay. This one guy said, "We don't think that there's ever been a 10-year period, a worst 10-year period than what we're experiencing right now at FSU between the football team, the basketball team, which although we beat Miami the other night, unbelievably, it's been tough. I mean, even the College World Series where Tennessee beat us and." The guy went all the way around, and they called it a ball. And the next pitch, he hit it out of the park, and we lost. To the snub in the selection show, selection committee. That the one year when we won every single game, and somehow got snubbed by a team that had lost the game. So yeah, it's been a tough year. I guess recruiting has gone okay, um, but the expectations in Tallahassee are not very high, and I have a feeling that the guy who's running the show there may be on his last leg,
Well,
but we'll see.
and you kind of almost hope to start. Like, I'm really glad to have a start over at Michigan and kind of a do over, and we'll see what Whittingham can do and what we're going to have next year. But it's kind of there. It's that new fresh air, and right now you guys are in the middle of your coach just keeps hanging on by a shoestring. So we'll see what
He keeps
happens.
he keeps hanging on, and then he fires all these other guys, and then we bring all these other guys in, and like you said, right? I mean, IU. What did they do? They got rid of Tom Allen, who I love, by the way. I loved him, and he's over at Clemson now, running their defense. But they bring a guy in, and a breath of fresh air, and he brings his assistants with him, and about 8 to 10 guys with him, and next thing you know, you have a whole new program, and that's kind of where I'm kind of leaning. I mean, again, I like our guy; he's a good person, no doubt about it. Love to have him sit at my Thanksgiving Day table with me and my family, but there comes a point where we gotta go get somebody who may not be so nice. I mean, he's a really really nice person, a really really good guy, good family guy, but we need a business guy, and I think we're gonna get him somewhere somehow.
All right. Now, one more topic here in the sports world we're going to take on. And Danny Shard's not able to be with us today, but Brad Ganser asked, so we're going to answer on Danny's behalf. Ken Stidham, or as he says, asked Danny if he thinks Stiddy can win a Super Bowl. Obviously, last week we talked. Danny Shard was there. He'll be there this next week as Denver tries to get to the Super Bowl, but suddenly Bo Nix, the next to last play, his no longer going to be able to stand on that ankle. Already had surgery, and so here comes Mr. Stidham. Brian Linke, what do you think Danny would say to the question, can Stidham take him to the Super Bowl?
Danny's a very positive guy. Very positive guy. Love talking to him, love being around him. And what Danny would say, well, okay, we're living in a time right now where, the Indiana Hoosiers were the worst team in college football, the worst. I mean, not close to the worst. They were the worst. So, if you're looking at it from okay, can they do it? I think we're just living in a day and age today where, like, you know what? Absolutely, they can do it. Their defense is really, really good. The ball bounces a certain way. I mean, this guy, he's going to step in there, and he's got, that's the thing. He's got an opportunity of a lifetime, of a lifetime. And we'll see if he takes advantage of it. I think he's going to be honest. I really do.
Well, I think that home field advantage is going to weigh in, and I think that the CJ Stroud of this week will be Drake May. I think Drake May is that second year is going to look a little hard on him. The big lights, the crisp temperatures of being mile high. We'll see. I am cheering for the Broncos, not just because I cheer for Danny and for his team, but also I just couldn't take it if the mass holes. I'm going to be in Boston in 2 weeks, right the week before the Super Bowl. I really don't want to have to deal with those mass holes. I'm just being honest. But hey, we'll find out.
No, I hear you, and yeah, Danny Shard's our brother, man. So yep. Like I'm with my brother. So we're gonna root for Denver, and hopefully they'll figure it out. They've got some smart people over there, and they'll come in with a game plan, and hopefully it'll work.
And Mr. Ganser says the correct answer is not a chance. And I just simply say, Mr. Ganser, how are those Vikings and Cowboys? I know those are your two teams. How are they doing this week? Just checking in for a friend.
There's always a chance. There's always a chance.
All right, Brian Linke, we're going to get into some talking. AI provided us some videos here. And Brian, we're talking about the hustle and freedom first. And we're going to walk through the stages of different areas of life and how you attacked the sales strategy. And the first is, what was Brian Linke like in the business world pre-partnering, pre-marriage, when you single, taking on the business world, you had the hustle and the freedom just going on, and then really even into the, we'll call it here, we'll add
We
two
should
new.
book the trip right now.
Let's do it.
These are my AI videos I put together. When you didn't have kids and were even single, what were how were things different for you, and how did you strategize to be successful back then?
Was there a time where that happened, Nate, where I didn't have kids? And I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to even think back that far. But no, there's definitely an answer. And I remember those days, and I was a different person then than I am today. I remember my dad and I sitting down at the dining room table, looking in the New York Times classified section, circling jobs. Right, I had just graduated from Florida State. It was the beginning of December. I graduated in December, and we were sending out resumes. Right, we were mailing them in the U.S. postal mail, and I got a bite right away from a company who sold long distance back in the day when MCI, Sprint, and the name of the company was Cable and Wireless, and the building I worked in was Five Penn Plaza, and I'll never forget it. I went into the city. And went up there, and the guy's like, "You got to go do this, do that." I'm like, "Okay, hold on a second." So all I need to do is knock on as many doors as I want, and go in there and get the statement, the bill, whatever. Bring it back here. Somebody will help me do the thing, and go close the deal. He's like, "That's exactly what you need to do." I'm like, "Okay, sounds pretty good to me, right?" $17,000 a year plus commission. And Brian Linke knocked on every door. Okay. I mean, I'm talking from 14th Street, if you know New York, to 49th Street, from Broadway over to 12th Avenue. Okay. There wasn't a door that I didn't hit. My claim to fame, I cold called every single door in the Empire State Building and every single door in both towers of the World Trade Center. And yeah, I had a lot of energy back then, and nothing was stopping me. And I got to the office at about 8 o'clock every single day, and I probably stayed in the city until about 8 o'clock at night. So yeah, I was a madman back then.
And there's it's energy of being young, but also the freedom of not having responsibilities and things that you could or should be doing. And it's that, and taking advantage of that when you have it. And it doesn't mean, I think we may have, in decades gone by, gone too far, and suddenly we were working 22 hours a day and sleeping 2 hours a night. And there are other things to take care of your life and mental health and all that. But there are opportunities that come when you have either no family, or maybe you're just partnered up and you're a double income, no kids, and you have that opportunity. There's just huge amounts of opportunity there, and you need to take advantage of it. And if you miss it, you miss it, because it goes away. It's like Brian's saying. Brian's a little further ahead of me, but not that much further. And you look back and you're like, I don't remember that stage of life, but it set a foundation and a hustle for you. So if you're in that foundation, what would you say to a person that's 24 years old and 26 years old? I mean, heck, you've got one son that's still in that age group, and kind of in that. What's your challenge to them? What do you say to them to take most advantage of that stage of life?
Right. I mean, the challenge is, what else are you going to do? I mean, what else do you have to do? I mean, you have really no responsibilities other than going to work and working on your career and building your career. And there's really nothing, nothing stopping you. Because Nate, as you know, you get married, you have a couple of kids. In your case, you have 4 kids. They all get involved in, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but there comes, other things. And Jason Lee Cook and I, our director of sales, she and I have this conversation a lot. And I told her, I said, you're never going to get that time back with your kids. So like, if they have a gymnastics thing or a cheerleading thing, and, I didn't have any girls, so I didn't deal with that, but you can't miss it. And Nate, you're the ultimate guy who flies back in the middle of the night and, early in the morning, and, just to see their kids swim or whatever it is. And I was the same exact way. The thing about it is the people at PayProTec, they never saw that side of Brian Linke, because my kids Zach was a senior in high school when I started here, and yeah, I guess my younger son was still doing the thing, but it was kind of like towards the end, and I, you know, I was able to maneuver because Matt Hoskins had his kids were about the same age, and but yeah, you're never going to get that time back, and I learned that, and I have zero regrets.
So, what would you say to our partners who are in the? We'll stick with the earlier ages, and then we'll talk with the like young kids, and then what I call the chaos years when the kids are going four different directions, all times. But what would you say
Right.
to that's doing payments? If you could give them one or two things that they could focus on to maximize that stage of life, no matter how long it is, it may be 6 months, it may be 5, 10 years for some people. How would you maximize that no kids single life that can really get the most out of it before you go to the next stage of life?
You know, I mean, that's a great question. And I guess the simple answer is, the problem is people see people like you and people like me and people like Danny, okay, who are past that stage of life. So they're 24, they're coming in, and they're like, okay, I want to do that. I want to be like Linky. I want to be like Danny. I want to be like Nate. What they don't see is, we weren't always like this. We weren't always living down here getting ready to go to and eat a grouper sandwich and drink about 14 Coronas. Okay, I wasn't always like this. There was a day where I had to put in the time and focus on me and focus on my career and focus on I mean, and money is it's important. For some people, it's more important than others. I think if you're in sales, how could it not be important? I mean, what else? I mean, why are you doing this if you're not doing it to make money? So yeah, I just think that you need to take all the noise out, okay, and spend that 10-year period, or 8-year period, or 6-year period, however long it is, and do nothing but focus on you, physically you, and your career.
Lay that foundation, because you're going to lay a foundation at some point. And the younger and the earlier you lay that foundation, the more firm it is, the more, whether it's an income goals or just networking goals or skills and experiences goals. There's so many things you can do, but in the payments world, take that right now, go join a networking group that you would never have the time to grow later in life. Start, there's so many different things, but come up with the top 10 things every year you're going to do, and just try new things and do things that you can't do, because the time is coming for most people, and some don't ever in the stage, but most of us get into the family life zone, and we start when we have young kids, and then it gets into the chaos years when your kids are swimming and doing soccer and basketball, and they've got wrestling camp, and they're doing who knows what, and they've got to be suddenly you've got 3 kids need to be 3 different places, and none of them drive at that point, and you're taking them all over, and it's zone defense at all times. That life
Those are the best days.
Those days are awesome. And you can't focus on, you have to maximize the 8 to 10 hours of workday that you get, because, and you have to shuffle them sometimes. You may have to get up earlier and then work later because the middle hours are taking kids all different places. Talk, Brian, a little bit about that when Zach and Ben Linky were, little kids to, getting into middle school and high school. We can kind of group it all together, though there are different stages. The diaper stages are very different.
When your kids are babies, you're still as free as you can possibly be, right? They're not, they're not old enough to play anything. They're really not old enough to, you may go to I don't know, preschool something, okay, but they're really not. But then all of a sudden they start getting into to where they're playing t-ball, and then you get them into pee-wee football, and you're playing travel basketball, and you're doing all these things. And I actually coached all of that, and I had to rearrange my schedule to fit those needs. And again, people at PayProTec didn't know me at that time, so they didn't see me doing that. But again, I've always said this. You can't get that time back, so you can't. Those 10 years before that, those 8 years, the 12 years, whatever time it is, that's the time. You hear these things today where kids don't want to work. Well, okay, I'm not really sure I get it. I even understand what that means, because that was never me. Okay. I never didn't have a job, right? I always was selling something to somebody somewhere. So I don't get it. I don't get it when people say that, but I guess we're living in a world today where that's the thing. I didn't have LinkedIn and Facebook and all these things that make it easier and harder because, everybody knows everything today, right? Which means you have to work that much harder.
Well, the world changed. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you knocked on every door in the Empire State Building and both towers of World Trade Center. You couldn't even get it. You can't even get into those buildings now, without
That's right.
permission to be beeped up and all the stuff. Things have changed. And so you got to figure out, so you got to even be more, it's a little bit harder now. You got to have a strategy to get in the door and figure out how they're going to buzz you up.
Actually, Nate, let me just tell you a story. There was an elevator man, okay, in the Empire State Building who kicked me out of the building, okay? And so I can't remember how many flights there were. So I started taking the stairs all the way up to the top. Okay, because he wouldn't.
You were in some shape at that point.
I was going from floor to floor. Okay, so I took the stairs and I beat him that way. You can't even do that today. Okay, you can't even do that today. But back then, I was tough to beat.
Yep. What do you think, Brian? What do you think you would give advice if someone knows they're about to change stages of life? They're about to have kids. They're about to, or maybe they know, man, my kids are now 3 and 5, and I'm about to hit that area where you start going all the places. And what would things that you would tell them to do to maximize their time, both as a dad and or a mom, both, and as they make that change, and so they both are maximizing what they're doing in sales and maximizing what they're doing as a parent and a family person?
Again, great question. And I think the simple answer is once you get to that stage, you must come up with a plan. You have to have a plan every single day as to how your day is going to go. Whether you have to drop the kids off at preschool or pick them up from swim practice or whatever it is, there are set times for certain things, and obviously you have to work in your business life into that. And the only way, a routine and a plan. And if you don't have those, now again, the first 10 years, maybe you don't have to have a plan. Maybe you're just winging it, flying by the seat of your pants. That's kind of what I did. I was just, but I was a maniac. I mean, I was literally, in and out of every single building. Okay. I mean, I'm telling you, I was hard to beat. Trust me. Okay. But then again, you have some kids, you fall into the little league thing. And if you don't have a plan and you don't have a routine, man, I can't even imagine how you could be successful. I mean, I guess, if you put yourself in a position to get lucky, but you got to come up with something.
Yep. Yeah. And if you've got to navigate it and change it as it needs to be. It will, every stage of life, it may not even work for that period of stage. Take times and moments and evaluate it and say, man, I've been doing cold calling by phone calls and I need to get out on the road. So I need to get 10 hours a week where I'm in front of merchants and walking door to door.
That's
and
a plan,
figure out how to do it. Yeah.
Right. That's a plan. Right.
Yep. And figure out and change it up. And I think I like what Brad Ganser says. I don't know if everybody can disagree or whatever, but it's that those of us who started in sales prior to the internet have a definite advantage. And I would say, and those who have figured out how to use the internet in a right way have an advantage too. There are lots of skills and lots of opportunities to do it, but learning that grit and that grind and learning to, just put your head down and get the work done, no matter what stage in life you're in, that's going to make a huge difference in your life. And it's going to make you a much more successful person in all areas of your life. You're going to be a win as a family person, and you're going to be a win as a business person. And that's really what we want. We want you to be winning. We talk a lot of times in the PayProTec world about the triple win. We want to win for the merchant, win for our partner, win for PayProTec. But there's that double win. This is another guy who, I can't think of his name right now, but he talks about the double win where you win in your work life and you win in your home life. And we want you to do both, because the most successful people do all that. They really do, and they're happier. Brian,
well, and I'm going to jump ahead for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
And you and I talked about this before we came on the thing, and all of a sudden, you find yourself in a situation where Okay, now you're in your 40s. Now you're in your 50s, and it's hard for me to even say this. Then now you're in your 60s. Okay, and there's a physical aspect of the job, like it or not. Okay, there's a physical aspect of the job. Getting in your car, getting out, going into businesses, getting back in the car, going to another business, getting back in the car, freezing cold, 100 degrees out, whatever it is, there's a physical aspect of the job. And as you get older, and again, I hate saying it, okay, it just gets harder physically, right? Physically. You try to keep yourself in halfway decent shape. You get out, you walk, you do all the right things. But again, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you have two knee replacements and two shoulder replacements, like me, and it just isn't as easy to get around. Now, I'm in better shape than most. Okay, but still, getting in and out of my car on certain days, it's a struggle, right? I told Billy West the other day, I'm like, everything is hard. Everything is hard, right? I was joking, but as you get older, and most people on here are what, in their 40s, mid 40s, late 30s, whatever it is. But I'm telling you, as you get older, there's a physical aspect of the job, and that's why you need to plant the seeds before that and get yourself in a position to where you don't have to, worry about, you know, the physical aspect of it because it's coming.
Well, and I was looking at something like I'm going to add a couple of comments for life because I like to make sure we get it. But speaking of someone who's even further down the road, Mr. Red Poppy, Dan Dayton from Alabama, talking about this. He went to the Rose Bowl 50 some years ago when IU played and lost. The MVP of the game was, do you know who it was? Because he puts it in the next comment. Who is the MVP when IU lost the Rose Bowl? And I think 50 years ago.
Okay, what?
Oh, here we go.
I
The
who
the
came up with
juice.
that question?
The juice. Dan
O.J.
Dayton.
Simpson?
O.J. Simpson won the MVP of the Rose Bowl when the IU last lost the Rose Bowl until they won it this year. So Dan
Dan,
Dayton.
that was a good question. I like that.
Yeah, it was good, a deep dive right there. But speaking of someone who's even, he is still working. His kids are fully grown. He's got, I can't remember. You may have great grandkids at this point. I don't think you're quite there yet, but you're a couple of years ahead of Brian, and I'm a little just trailing, just slightly behind Brian here. But we're looking at those stages of life, and I call it the last stage, the legacy stage of life. And Brian, you're kind of there now. You're in that middle road right now. You've moved to Florida. You've had the opportunity. You're going to the beach this afternoon. You're taking care of you now have grandkids. How's that changed for you? You said you physically can't do it. Your mind is all there. So how do you keep yourself sharp, and how do you make the most, though you're not spending 80 hours a week doing work, but you're still doing work? How do you make the most of the time now?
Well, the way I look at it is, I work for a company who has enabled me to, my mom got sick and we moved down here, and I was able to spend the last 3 years of her life with her. So, I mean, that was kind of the original reason why. But I work for a company that, Matt Hoskins and Billy West and Danny Shard, Nate Manahan, Paul Kent. Josh Brown, Jason Lee Cook, all of them, have enabled me to do this. Okay, so I feel extremely fortunate to be where I am. Okay, things are good, right? I mean, things are good. I just kind of feel like every day I kind of owe it to not to them so much, but to myself to get up every day and get in my office and phone rings, answer it, make the phone calls, talk to the partners, and then by Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, right? I can head to the beach because I've earned that, and I mean I feel I've earned it, and I feel I deserve it, and this is because again at 63 I'm still able to do these things. At 73, I hope so. But you never know. So you got to live your life, and I'm living my life.
and you've planned for it and you've strategized for it. And, I'm 49, so I'm a little behind you, but my kids, I think my daughter got married. My next son is a freshman in college. So I've got, still have a seventh grader and a sophomore. So I still have, but I've started thinking toward those years that you're looking at now and been more strategic. And I pull up my accounts more and seeing what the stocks are doing and try not to do too much of that because it gets a little nervous on certain days. But I start trying to create strategy. What does that look like when I'm 55, when I'm 60, when, getting just and making decisions now will reflect, I know what that will happen because where I am now is set on decisions I made a decade ago. And you've got to start thinking forward, right, being as proactive as you possibly can, being as reactive as little as you can. We still have to react to things. We don't know everything. We don't know 100% what's going to happen, but we're going to be more successful more often if we are proactive, not reactive. Brian, what are one or two things you would say to someone who's starting to look to get to your stage of life, and then even maybe the next where work is less? And I don't think Brian Linke will ever stop working totally, but he may not get a paycheck from any place. But what are some of those things and tips that you have been put you into this place and gotten you into the stage that you think you made some wise decisions a decade or 2 decades ago?
Well, the simple answer is again, I've always had a plan, right? And I've always been on a routine, like every day. You work out, you do this, you do that. So if you're planning your future, if you're putting away, there's not one person on this call that can't put $100 a month away. There's not one. Okay, I know there's not one. Right? You probably can do $500 a month. You just don't know it. Okay. But like once you start in that and, 10 years from now, you look back, you're like, oh, okay. Now I've got this chunk of money here. I can call a finance guy and we can invest it and we can let the money work for you. It's something that I think is just a responsible adult has to do. And you know what? If you're spending money on things that maybe you don't necessarily need, and you could put that $100 a month away. I don't want to preach like I'm, Mr. Investment guy, but my wife and I did a lot of really good things back in the day, and we're continuing to do that for our grandkids. And my kids don't know it, but they'll be pleased when they find out. It's just responsibility, right? Having a plan, putting yourself in a position to get lucky, those kinds of things, and meeting the right people. I've met some really, really good people. There are some really good people at PayProTec, and I just feel I'm extremely fortunate to be here.
Yeah, I think one of the things is choose wisely and of who you connect yourself with, who you put around you, who's helping you make decisions. And then you're going to get to a chance like where Brian is, where you're going to have those opportunities. And the other thing is, if you haven't been making those decisions and you've been the losingest program of the history of NCAA football, you never know what a few right decisions could do for you. And it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It matters what you do today and tomorrow. And you can improve your state of life. You can improve your opportunities. You can improve the number of sales you have. There's multiple things you can do. And so, Brian, I'm going to leave this question this question. What are 2 or 3 suggestions for sales professionals, specifically in our area, and payment professionals who are out there selling to merchants? What are some things that you would encourage them to do today that's going to have a major impact on their life tomorrow? We kind of talked about, get out of bed and that stuff, but what are some like big, broader picture life things that they could do that's going to make them successful a decade from now if they start doing it today? You mentioned one, I'll give it to you. Start saving $100 a month. Perfect. Great. What else would you
saving $100? Right. To me, that's an easy one. Because I'm telling you right now, there's not one person on this call, not one, that can't do that. Okay. And I've already talked about, that's a great question, Nate, but I think I've already hit on it.
Yeah.
Come up with a plan. Okay. You've got to have a plan. Today's Friday. You should spend this weekend. Okay. What does next week look like? When I recruit people, that's the main question I ask them is like, what is your day going to look like moving forward? right? You've been in the business, you've been in the industry, you don't like the company where you're at, you don't like the residual split, blah, 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 all this. What is tomorrow going to look like, right? The alarm rings, 5:45, 6 o'clock. Now what, right? Come up with a plan. Be disciplined within that plan. That's another thing. Be disciplined within that plan because there's so many distractions in life, right? There are just so many things. You have people wanting you to go, hey, let's go get a beer, let's go do this, go do that. But if you haven't done what's on your plan or in your plan, okay, well, guess what? You know what? Sorry, you got to say no. I'll meet you there in a few hours and get out there and knock on 20 more doors. And a routine. Another thing, right? A routine every single day, because we all know you put yourself in a routine, somehow it doesn't always stay that way, right? I mean, there's always something that happens. The phone rings, it's a merchant, you got to go out there, you didn't know you would have to do it, all of those things. I get it, okay? And it happens to all of us. But if you put yourself in a routine, at least try to stick to it. I'm telling you now, it'll change what you're doing.
And that is our goal. That's the goal of PayProTec. The goal of us we want you to have a better tomorrow than today and a better next decade than this decade. And we're all going to do it together. And that's why we do this. We just want to make sure that you can meet those goals, succeed. And we want to partner with people that have that. And so whether you're working with PayProTec now or you're going to work with PayProTec in the future, know that our goal is not how many merchants you sign up or how much volume. Our goal is that you grow your portfolio, you change your life, you get to hopefully that generational wealth piece of your life. And that's going to give us the merchants we need. That's going to give us the volume we need. Because we're in this together and we're going to do it together. And that's why we talk about these things. If we close up, Brian, the high five, our second high five, Danny should be back next week. We'll have some cool topics to talk about, but let's close it with this way. Can you predict the score of the two NFL games? We've got Seattle with the beautiful Los Angeles Rams coming in. It's the young quarterback that no one has any faith in Seattle versus the old dog in Stafford. And then we have Stidham leading the Broncos as Drake May brings in Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. Who do you choose in these two games so we can hold ourselves accountable? We all won last week with the scores, though it was a lot closer, I think, than we thought, with IU winning. What are we going to have in the NFL as we go to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks from Sunday?
I like Denver 24-21, and I like the Rams to go into Seattle and Stafford to have just a monster game, 34-24 over the Seahawks.
And how many of those touchdowns that Stafford throws will be from Puka Nacua?
Well, okay, since he throws him the ball, 80% of the time, I'm going to say two.
Two? So, yeah, Puka is just fun to watch. He is now he's gotten a little.
The other guys weren't playing for Seattle now. What's his name? The other guy.
Yeah,
a similar guy to Puka.
Yes, the pre Puka. My brain is yes, but you're right. Yeah.
He caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
God, I can't remember his name.
I'm totally blanking.
He's a similar type player.
Yep. It's going to be fun. It's kind of weird. I always think when the Super Bowl hits because we've got the sports kind of going up. But hey, we love sports here at PayProTec. But more importantly, we love making you guys some money. So if you're interested in learning more about PayProTec, just go to PayProTec.com, click on that Join a Partner button, and we'd love to have you. Brian Linke, thank you so much. Next week, Danny will be back. We're talking sports. We're talking, did you watch the movie Sinners this year, Brian?
No, but I heard a lot about it though.
I have not, because I don't tend to. My kids all loved it, and I'm gonna Cooper Cup. Thank you, Josh Brown watching live. Thank you,
right.
Thank you. But Sinners, we're going to talk about that in next week. But I'm watching it this weekend finally for the first time. But the most Oscar nominations in the history of movie nominations for Sinners. So who knows? All right. On top of all these things going on, we're so glad you had it. Thank you, Brian Linke. Go enjoy the beach. For the rest of us, I'm going to go write some emails, and we're going to have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay warm. 80% of the U.S. is either getting freezing rain, snow, or bitterly cold, exploding trees.
And 20% is not.
Yes. So
20% is not.
Yeah, the 20%, those 20%ers, Brian Linke, enjoy yourselves. Those 80%ers are going to be safe and not doing things stupid. And we'll see you all guys back next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.